Hi friends, good evening. Welcome to Aura IAS Academy. This is Dr. Harinath Reddy. See, today in this particular video, we will try to discuss about the questions which have come in GS paper 1, General Studies paper 1, UPSC mains exam, General Studies paper 1, 2025. So this exam was conducted in the morning today between 9 and 12. And before I get started fully, as you all know, in the General Studies papers, it is the general essay which is very scoring. So students are getting up to 175 marks in the general essay. So general essay is followed by the ethics paper. The highest scores possible in the ethics paper is 162. Then comes the GS paper 2. GS paper 2 students are getting around 135. In GS paper 1, the students are getting up to 128. It is only in GS paper 3 where the students are not able to score more than 102. In other words, GS paper 1, paper 2, essay and ethics are very scoring papers. So there is a high chances of scoring well in GS paper 1 if you write properly. Then if you see the questions which have come today, most of the questions are reasonably easy to answer. But if your answer is very focused by using of data, keywords, linking current affairs, your answer may become a quality answer. So let's get started with the discussion of the questions. The first question, let us see the first question. Discuss the salient features of Harappan architecture. This is not a difficult question. It is a relatively more easy question. And you know that the first civilization in India is Harappan civilization or Indus Valley civilization. And it flourished in India between 2500 BC and 1750 BC. See, 2500 BC to 1750 BC. So this is the period of Indus Valley civilization. It is also called proto-historic civilization. So the history can be broadly divided into three periods: prehistory, proto-history, and history. So prehistory is the period where there is no script, and the proto-history is the period where the script is available and we are not able to decipher and read the script. History is the period where script is available and it is deciphered. We can read it. So Indus Valley civilization, it falls in the proto-historic period. And straight away when it comes to the Harappan architecture, and one unique feature of Indus Valley civilization or Harappan civilization is it is a sophisticated urban civilization. So 4,500 years back, Indians in the Indian subcontinent have built a very sophisticated urban civilization. So then when it comes to Harappan architecture, during this period, the main architectural forms of this period, they belong to: one, we have structures like bath, great bath at Mohenjo-daro, granaries are built. In addition to this, we have an artificial naval dockyard at Lothal, and then we have artificial water reservoir at Dholavira. We also have seals made of steatite. We also have terracotta figurines, bronze statues. All these you need to discuss under the architecture of the Harappan period. Granaries, great bath, even structures like citadel. If you see the town planning in the urban civilization of Indus Valley, there are two kinds of towns: upper town, lower town. Upper town is fortified with a citadel, and the lower town is not fortified. So it speaks about the class divided society of that particular period. And the burnt bricks which were used during this period, they have standards. So uniformly throughout Indus Valley civilization, the length, breadth, and height, they are uniform and they are standardized. In addition to these, 4,500 years back, the people of Indus Valley, they have built an underground drainage system. And the cities are built in grid pattern, chessboard pattern. So the streets, they cut at right angles. So this is what you need to discuss under the architecture of Harappan civilization. Then when it comes to the second question, examine the main aspects of Akbar's religious syncretism. See, in the medieval period, it is the Mughal dynasty which has reached the commanding heights, especially during the period of Akbar. So Akbar is not only an able administrator, he is also a man with a lot of religious tolerance. So he took many Hindu wives, and in the harem, in the palace, he allowed idolatry. So idolatry is a sin in Islam. Worshipping the God in the human form is called idolatry. So this is not accepted in Islam. Despite that, because of the tolerant religious policy of Akbar, the queens of Akbar, they were allowed to do worship of idols in the palace. That speaks about the religious tolerance of Akbar. And when Akbar was brought under Bairam Khan, his guardian, he had influence of Shia sect of Islam. Shia sect is relatively more tolerant religious sect compared to Sunni sect. And he was also influenced by the Sufi saints of that particular period. All these are responsible for the tolerant religious policy of Akbar. Then, at a Fatehpur Sikri, the new capital which Akbar has built, there was one place called Ibadat Khana. So this is the place where there were discussions on different world religions which prevailed at that period of time. So Akbar tried to encourage discussion and debate among the scholars of different religions. So by closely watching these discussions, Akbar closely learned the important preachings of all the important religions of then period. So then later on, the essence of all the religions, he came up with his own religious philosophy called Sulekul, which is called peace for all, and he tried to promote a religious sect called Deen Ilahi. In other words, Akbar tried to promote a kind of stability, peace and unity in his empire by taking the best of the preachings in all the religions of the prevailing time and tried to promote a kind of national unity in his empire to bring stability and peace to his empire. So this is what you need to write about Akbar's religious syncretism. So Akbar, by listening to different religions of that period, he tried to borrow the principles which are relevant for promoting peace and unity among the humanity of that period. Then the third question, the sculptors filled the Chandela art form with a resilient vigor and breadth of life elucidate. See, Chandela dynasty in the medieval period, it has ruled over Bundelkhand, and they have built magnificent temples in a Shikara style of architecture. The temple architecture is broadly categorized into three: Nagara or Shikara in North India, Dravidian style of architecture in South India, and a mix of both, which is called a Vesara style of architecture in the Dakkan. So the Bundelkhand rulers, that is Chandela rulers between 10th and 12th century, they have built magnificent temples in Shikara style in their cultural capital called Khajuraho. So Khajuraho is the cultural capital of Chandela dynasty. There they have built magnificent temples in Shikara style. So the superstructure over the Sanctum Sanctorum, it was having very huge height. And then there was a lot of focus on eroticism. So Mithuna couple was richly displayed over the temples. And it is not only that, the architecture and in the temple architecture, in the statues of this period, you see a lot of depiction of the prevailing social and economic life of that particular period. So that's what you need to discuss under the third question. Chandela's art form, the sculptors of the Chandela dynasty, they contributed to art form with a resilient vigor and breadth of life. Here, breadth of life means the different aspects of society then was clearly depicted in the architecture of the Khajuraho temples. Then the next question, how are climate change and the sea level rise affect the very existence of many island nations? Discuss with examples. So this is a topic which can be both static and current. Nowadays, there is a lot of discussion and debate on the issues like climate justice, climate change, global warming, and climate justice. So we all know that climate change is mostly because of anthropogenic causes. So the human beings, by using more and more fossil fuels, were responsible for the release of greenhouse gases. So these greenhouse gases have the effect of trapping heat in them and resulting in an increase in the average surface temperature both above the oceans and also on the land. So this has a huge impact on the global weather phenomenon. See, the tropical cyclones, they become more devastating, the droughts become more frequent and severe, the monsoon becomes very erratic, so there will be frequent flooding and also frequency of droughts will also increase. So given this context, there is also this danger of coastal flooding. There are many countries like our Maldives, Kiribati, Marshall Islands, which are just a few centimeters above the sea level. So if this phenomenon of global warming is not arrested by collective action at the global level, a time may come very soon that these islands may become extinct. But the problem with this climate change is, it is not the developing countries or the underdeveloped countries which are responsible for this problem. Historically, the developed countries are responsible for this problem, and it is the developing and the developed countries which are worst victims of climate change and global warming. So unless the developed countries take a greater responsibility in dealing with climate change and global warming, the countries like Maldives, Marshall Islands, Kiribati, Tuvalu, all these countries will face extinction in the near future. So this question, how are climate change and sea level rise affecting the very existence of many island nations? So an increase in the sea level because of the impact of climate change will threaten the existence of many island nations, like what I said before. And you can also give examples. Even a country like Bangladesh is being most affected by climate change and global warming. See, the livelihood of the communities in the coastal areas is getting affected. Coastal flooding results in damage to infrastructure. Sometimes the fertile soils, delta soils close to the coastal areas, they also, because of intrusion of the saline water, the fertility will come down. So these are all the impacts on the countries which are located in the coastal areas and also the island nations. Question number 5, what are non-farm primary activities? How are these activities related to physiographic features in India? So physiographic features in India, they refer to different landforms. So in the Indian subcontinent, we have mountains, we have plateau areas, we have plain areas, and we also have deltas. So depending upon the physiography of the region, it influences the economic activity of that particular period, of the particular region. For example, in the Himalayan areas, the pastoralism is being practiced. In Western Ghats and in Eastern Ghats, in central Indian forest areas, there is something called a zoom or shifting cultivation, which is being practiced. In addition to this, the plateaus like Chota Nagpur Plateau, they are rich in mineral resources. So here non-farm primary activities include mining and quarrying. It includes not only mining and quarrying, it also includes our animal husbandry, it includes fishery activities, it includes even forest lumbering. So if you take central India, Madhya Pradesh, states like Madhya Pradesh, there you have rich forest cover. So there, cutting of the forest for timber is one of the main activities. In the Himalayan region, practice of pastoralism. So the shepherd community, that is one dominant economic activity. In the arid and semi-arid region, for example, if you take Western Ghats, to the east of the Western Ghats, we have the region which is receiving less rainfall compared to the western part of the Western Ghats. So these areas, the dominant activity is animal husbandry. So depending upon the physiography of a region will impact the kind of economic activity which prevails in that particular region. So in this question, you need to explain what are the non-farm primary activities. So non-farm primary activities includes mining and quarrying, forestry, allied activities like animal husbandry, fisheries, and how these activities are influenced by the prevailing physiography of the region. Then question number 6, explain briefly the ecological and economic benefits of solar energy generation in India with a suitable examples. We know that at the national level, we have an important initiative which Government of India has come up with to fight climate change. We have National Action Plan on Climate Change. It has got 8 missions. The first mission is about solar energy, Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Energy Mission. So it's not only that, Government of India has taken initiative to come up with the International Solar Alliance, encouraging generation of solar energy in the tropical areas. International Solar Alliance. So this is an international organization which is headquartered in India. So by using this international platform, Government of India, along with other countries across the globe which are located in this tropical and subtropical area, lot of money is being mobilized in the form of investment to promote solar energy. And what are the ecological benefits? You know that burning of fossil fuels and relying on fossil fuels, it is creating a lot of impact on the natural environment where we reside. So we want to cut down the greenhouse gas emissions by reducing our dependence on fossil fuels. So increasing reliance on solar energy and increasing generation of solar energy will definitely reduce the carbon footprint and thereby reducing the impacts of climate change. We can reduce the impact of tropical cyclones. We can reduce coastal flooding. We can reduce the intensity of droughts. We can reduce the frequency of flooding. All of these things can be addressed by increasing reliance on renewable energy. And the solar energy is one of the items under renewable energy. So these are the ecological and economic benefits of solar energy generation in India. And the two important schemes. Under National Action Plan on Climate Change, we have a separate mission to encourage the production of solar energy, which we say National Solar Mission. And I think we have made a significant generation of solar power. Close to 70 to 80,000 megawatt of power today is being coming from solar energy. That's question number 7. What are tsunamis? How and where are they formed? What are their consequences? Explain with examples. So this is a question on geography, a static question. The tsunami, it refers to giant ocean waves. And the reasons for tsunami, there are many. If there is an underground earthquake, or if there is a landslide in the mountains submerged under the oceans, that also can be a reason. And even collision between different tectonic plates or divergence between tectonic plates resulting in volcanism, they all result in the phenomenon of tsunami. So tsunami, it refers to a giant wave which is generated because of earthquakes within the oceans, volcanism within the oceans, and then landslides within the oceans. So when such a phenomenon happen, earthquake, volcanism, landslides, it results in massive displacement of water. And this travels to the coast as waves, and by the time these waves reach the coast, they will have that a devastating potential of destroying the infrastructure close to the coastal areas. And what are their consequences? Their consequences, they will have huge impact on the coastal communities. The infrastructure in the coastal areas gets damaged. We know that in India, not just in India, throughout the length and breadth of the globe, we have heavy concentration of population in the coastal areas. Take Chennai, Calcutta, Mumbai. So there is a direct impact on the coastal communities in the form of coastal flooding and a destruction to the infrastructure lying close to the coastal areas. And because of tsunamis, seawater can enter into the land areas and the fertile soils there get salinized. So the productivity of the crops will also come down. So these are the consequences of tsunamis. Then question number 8. How does a smart city in India address the issues of urban poverty and distributive justice? So here when you write about the concept of smart city, you just get started your answer with the importance of urban areas. Remember, 70 to 80% of India's GDP comes from the urban areas. Significant employment in this country is created in the urban areas. Urban areas are the engines of economic growth. So that's why managing urbanization is the highest priority. As per census 2011, the urban population accounts for close to 1/3 of the total population is living in urban areas. Unless the urban areas are properly managed, we cannot create economic growth. And if you don't do that, you cannot create jobs. If you don't create economic growth and jobs, you cannot address poverty and unemployment in this country. So in that sense, this concept is important. And the present government under Narendra Modi, way back in 2014, it started something with a concept called a Smart Cities Mission. There are in fact 3 programs. One is Amrut. The second one is Smart Cities Mission. And the third one, we have some more schemes like Swachh Bharat Urban. So under smart cities, concept of smart cities, there will be focus on improving the infrastructure. The housing facilities for the poor in the urban areas is one area of focus. Then making commuting, transportation in the urban areas more inclusive and more efficient. That is one more focus. In addition to this, there is also a simultaneous focus on improved governance by leveraging on digital technology. So by providing housing facilities, by improving the transport infrastructure, by improving the governance in the urban areas, the Smart Cities Mission will try to address the problem of urban poverty, and it also facilitates distributive justice. Then question number 9. The ethos of civil service in India stands for the combination of professionalism with a nationalistic consciousness. Elucidate, explain. See, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, the first deputy prime minister in this country, he called civil service as the steel frame. And in India, we have a rich tradition of civil service remaining very neutral. Soon after India's independence, after the Second World War, after many of the countries have come out of colonialism and imperialism, many got transformed into democracies. Even in India's neighborhood, many countries, they did not sustain democracy. Countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, they switched over to dictatorial regimes or authoritarian regimes. But in India, because of the civil services, including the armed forces, they have a culture of professionalism, staying neutral and obeying the civilian government of the time. So that led to democracy to take deep roots in this country. And then, as I said rightly, that all India services, one of the components of the civil services, initially there was a hesitation to continue them. But Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel felt that these all India services will serve India as efficiently as they have served the Britishers. All India services are those services which are common to the center and the states. And Patel argued that they are necessary in India to protect unity and integrity of this country. Because all India service officers, they are recruited by the union government and they are assigned to the states. In every state, 50% of them, they come from the state. 50% they come from outside the state. Those who are from outside the state, they act as eyes and ears of the union government. If something fishy happens in any particular state, they report to the union government. So the union government can keep in touch with what is going on in the states by talking to the officers of the All India Service. All India Service officers are under the effective control of the union government. Their dismissal and removal is in the hands of the union government. The state governments have got only some control in the form of suspension, or they can withhold promotion, they can at the best do transfers. So civil services in India in the last 75 years, because of their professionalism, they played an important role in promoting national unity. But unfortunately, there is increasing politicization. Maybe in the initial decades of independence, there is a lot of professionalism, that is in the sense of civil services neutrality, efficiency, competence, integrity, they were all very much there in the civil services. But in the last 3 to 4 decades, there is increasing politicization of the civil services, and civil services are taking sides with the political parties which are in power. And this is not good for the country. So this is what you need to highlight when you write the answer for this question. Do you think that globalization results in only an aggressive consumer culture? Justify your answer. So what is globalization? You know that globalization is interconnectedness. So there is economic globalization, social globalization, political globalization. So the question says globalization results in only, it means it is highlighting only one dimension of globalization. It says there will be excessive consumer culture because of globalization. But is that the only impact of globalization? The impact of globalization is much more wider. It doesn't, yes, it promotes consumer culture, but that is not the only dimension of globalization. So globalization have got even other impacts. For example, so there is increasing participation of women in the workforce. The freedom of the women is expanding. The families have become more nuclear families rather than joint families. So then there is increasing feminization of agriculture, and the senior citizens or the elderly age people, now most of them, they are being neglected because the young workforce is moving in the name of work to countries across the globe, and there are less people who are being taken, who are less people to take care of the senior citizens. All these are the impacts of globalization. So we cannot confine globalization only for promoting consumer culture. There is even cultural globalization. Now people increasingly imitate the Western countries in terms of the food they eat, and in terms of the music they listen to, and in terms of the dress they wear. So the phenomenon of globalization, it has got multiple impacts on multiple social groups and multiple countries. So the impact is much wider than just merely promoting consumer culture. Question number 11. Mahatma Jyotirao Phule's writings and efforts of social reforms touched issues of almost all subaltern classes discussed. See, in the modern period, we have socio-religious reform movements. So most of these socio-religious reform movements, they focused on promoting the education of women. They rejected caste discrimination. So they rejected the practice of untouchability. They rejected the superstitions in the religious beliefs. And if you take Mahatma Jyotirao Phule, he worked in the present-day Maharashtra in the Pune region. So this man has written a book called Gulamgiri. Gulamgiri. And then he has put up an organization called Satya Sodak Samaj. Satya Sodak Samaj. So in his writings of Gulamgiri, he argued for education as a tool for liberating the people from all these social evils. In addition to this, he also gave a lot of focus to promoting the female education. The education of the girl child was one of the focus areas of this man. He rejected discrimination on the basis of caste. He preached against untouchability, and he wanted to promote an inclusive education system, including the girl children, even the lower caste people. So, in other words, Mahatma Jyotirao Phule, he wanted to establish an egalitarian society, an equal society where all people enjoy equal rights and liberties. That's the contribution of Mahatma Jyotirao Phule. Question number 12. Trace India's consolidation process during early phase of independence in terms of polity, economy, education, and international relations. If you take in the initial decades of independence, the constitution was made a secular nation state. Then what are the advantages of a secular nation state? So a secular nation state will give equal rights and freedoms to the people of different religious faiths. This can keep the country united. We chose a federal constitution so that there is a distribution of power between the center and the states, keeping the country united. We also chose a parliamentary democracy where sharing of political power among different social groups is possible. So the Constitution of India is a carefully crafted, keeping in mind the requirements of India. So a parliamentary democracy, a federal constitution, a secular nation state, they are all aimed at protecting and promoting the unity and integrity of India. This is in terms of polity. Then if you take in terms of international relations, Nehru has come up with a policy called a Panchashil, dealing with the neighbors. Then he also come up with a non-aligned movement. So these are two important pillars in foreign policy of India. Non-movement, non-aligned movement, which refers to the countries which have got independence after the Second World War, after coming out of colonialism and imperialism. They don't take sides either with USA or USSR. Depending upon the issue and situation, depending upon the merits of the situation, they either will support or not support the cause of the issue. So this is a kind of sovereignty, protecting independence, sovereignty from the domination of the superpowers of that period, especially the United States of America and the Soviet Union. So that's the policy in the sphere of international relations. We have Panchashil and a non-aligned movement. When it comes to economy, Nehru chose a socialist model of development in the first 4 decades of independence, 1950 to 1990. Though this model has failed in course of time, Nehru got quite impressed with the developments in Soviet Union, and Nehru had a remarkable faith that a socialist model of development will address poverty, illiteracy, unemployment in this country, and will pave a way for establishment of an equal society. But in course of time, because of the dominance of the public sector, because of the misuse of the monopoly of the public sector in the license permit quota Raj, things have went wrong. But the concept of 5-year plan, the concept of planning commission in the initial decades has laid a good foundation for physical, social, and economic infrastructure. So that is the policy which was taken up with respect to economy in the early decades of independence. When it comes to education, Jawaharlal Nehru was a visionary in terms of education. In 1968, the government has come up with a national policy on education 1968. In addition to that, the scientific and technological institutions were set up in this country to provide scientific and technological manpower to this country. We have Indian Institutes of Technology, Indian Institutes of Management, we have central universities. All these were set up by Jawaharlal Nehru, keeping in mind the requirements of modern economy. So Nehru had a clear vision when it comes to polity, economy, education, and international relations. But in some sectors, like in economy, things have went wrong and have not yielded desired results. Question number 13. The French Revolution has enduring relevance to the contemporary world. Explain. So French Revolution was witnessed in the year 1789. So before 1789, France was ruled by a dynasty called the Bourbon dynasty. The rulers are very autocratic. There was no equality in the society. There were feudal privileges. So all these inequalities in the society were fighted in the French Revolution. And the relevance of French Revolution to the contemporary world is the slogans of the French Revolution in the name of liberty, equality, and fraternity. They inspire the humankind even today after a long gap of 1789 is the year of French Revolution. From then till today, these slogans are very, very important even today. Even while writing the Indian Constitution, Ambedkar said, liberty without equality will result in the supremacy of the few over the many. And equality without liberty will kill individual initiative. And the liberty and equality without fraternity will undermine national unity. So all these three are equally important. They are intertwined. And these goals, these ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity, they are as relevant today as they were in the year 1789. And the French Revolution also marked the era of a transition from a monarchy to democracies. So that's the relevance of French Revolution. So there were several movements today across the globe for the cause of several issues. For example, the concept of climate justice, the concept of international refugees because of conflict, ongoing conflict in several parts of the world. So the prevailing injustice in different parts of the world in different forms. For all these movements, French Revolution serves as a source of inspiration. So the revolution continues to remain very relevant even today. That is question number 30. The other questions, other faculty will discuss. We will take up question number 18. Achieving sustainable growth with the emphasis on environmental protection could meet poor people's needs in a country like India. So in the year 2015, we had come up with a concept called sustainable development goals. There are 17 sustainable development goals which are agreed upon at the global level, which are to be achieved by the year 2030. And it is in the year 1789. There was one commission called World Commission on Environment and Development. It is also called the Brundtland Commission. It is the Brundtland Commission which has given a comprehensive definition for sustainable development. It says sustainable development is that development which meets the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. So because of, especially in a country like India, the concept of sustainable growth has got a lot of relevance. So with a huge population, India has become the most populated country in the world, but with limited resources. So if we can focus on quality health, quality education, right kind of skilling, proper nutrition, we can make use of the human resources within this country. According to one estimate, in the coming 2 decades, between 2030 and 2040, we are going to add 15 crore people to the labor force. For all these people who are in the working age, if you can't find jobs, that will create a lot of instability in this country. So if you want to achieve sustainable economic growth in this country, it is very much necessary to focus on nutrition, quality health, quality education, and the right kind of skill. It is not only that. Climate change and global warming will take away the developmental fruits. So we also need to focus simultaneously on climate change, dealing and fighting with climate change, for which we had a program called National Action Plan on Climate Change. In addition to this, we need to attract more and more investment into the labor-intensive sectors. When it comes to agriculture, we need to move away from the cereals to high-value crops like horticultural products. Now, there is a less demand for things like wheat and rice, and there is growing demand for fruits, vegetables, protein like meat. So, Indian agriculture has to get transformed in tune with the demand for the population. So, unless there is we promote crop diversification to meet the demands of the population, agriculture can't grow at a higher rate. So that's what you need to discuss under question number 18. Achieving sustainable growth with emphasis on environmental protection. So when it comes to environmental protection, we are focusing a lot on electric vehicles. There is a scheme called a FAME, faster adoption and the mobility of electric vehicles. And also we have a National Green Hydrogen Mission. We also have this National Action Plan on Climate Change. And we have the concept of sustainable development goals. So several initiatives are being taken to ensure that there is environmental sustainability in the long run. So these are the questions in this session. We will try, the other remaining questions in GS paper 1 will be taken up by the other faculty. Thank you. End the session. So these are the questions in this session. We will try, the other remaining questions in GS paper 1 will be taken up by the other faculty. Thank you.
I think you have gone through all the questions of GS1. What is your take? In my opinion, compared to previous year questions, this year question was pretty direct, simple, but it deviated from the 10th. Say, for example, with respect to society, especially, previously the hotspots of UPSC questions were pertaining to caste system, globalization, communism, regionalism, though these kind of questions were not there. But the questions which have come are very simple, direct, straightforward. Right? With this introduction, let's get started. So our friend Harinath Reddy has explained most of the questions. I'll explain some of the remaining questions. Having said that, let's get started. Please read the question carefully. Does tribal development in India center around two axes, those of displacement and rehabilitation? Give your opinion. So as I made this point pretty clear yesterday, how to answer a question? First of all, you have to address the key words which are there. You shouldn't be elaborating, just the key words, what they mean. What they mean. And afterwards, you have to answer the demand of the question. So here, the main intent, the core idea is the developmental projects, the developmental policies which we are having in India, are they revolve around these two, that is displacement and rehabilitation? What is your answer? Please let me know. What is your answer? Does, say, to make the concept clear, Earth revolves around its axis. Did you get the point? Earth revolves around this point, axis. Similarly, here they are asking, does our policies, our programs with respect to tribal development revolve around displacement and rehabilitation? So what is your opinion? When do we have displacement? When there is a dam built, when there is a development program, right? So after they being displaced, there will be rehabilitation. Is this the center theme? Is this the main thing? They are asking. To conclude this, in fact, this is not the main theme. What is the main theme around which the development of tribes is there? Before that, just for general information, you should be having just like one or two words. You should be touching as to what is tribe? Who are called tribes? And what does tribe mean in India? You should be just touching in just one line or two lines. You shouldn't be writing too much. For that, after that, what are the axes of development? Means what is the main focus of development, tribal development in India? That is the one thing which you should touch. Afterwards, is this axis of development is around displacement and rehabilitation? Here, it is an opinion-based question. You can agree or you may disagree with this. So here, let me explain the things in a systematic way. Tribe. Who is a tribe? Tribes are those who, like, generally live in remote places, Adivasis, hill people, primitive people, right? They use primitive technology. They are simple societies. They don't have sophisticated knowledge, sophisticated technology. Many may be in hunting and gathering way of living. We are in domesticating the crops, animals. They may not be. So in general, tribes are relatively isolated from the mainstream, right? They live in hilly areas or remote areas. There is a strong community feeling, solidarity, group. It may be a clan, a fratry, or a lineage. That affinity may be related to blood or may be related to the marital relations. And they are dependent on the primary things, the natural resources, land and forest. So primitive technology and simple economy will be there. This will suffice. You shouldn't be writing all these things. Just one line should be written. The other thing, if at all, if you want, they have common language, culture, territorial affiliation. They have got political organizations based on kinship, based on family, based on marriage. Now, say for example, now, if you take nation states, the political organizations are not based on kinship affiliations. They are based on constitution, right? So distinct customs, tradition, practice. Some of the examples may be Gond, Bil, Santala, Naga, all this. So all this what I have said should be just mentioned in 1 or 2 lines. Then comes the main thing. Like before that, tribes in India are defined under Article 366. It simply says that has defined in Article 342. So Article 342 simply says that President by notification will notify who are tribes and who are not. Later, Parliament can amend the list. That is for general information. Now comes the main thing. Axis around which tribal development in India centered. What does this mean? Means main direction or the core principles guiding the tribal development. Is the point clear to you? What is the guiding principle? What is the main core idea or the principle around which the development of tribes is revolving? So here it is pretty clear that tribal development cannot be and should not revolve only around displacement and rehabilitation. Why? This is a reactive one. There is a dam built, there will be displacement. When they are displaced, there will be rehabilitation. Is this a holistic approach? Definitely not. Then what should be the major guiding principles? Are you getting me? What should be the major guiding principles, or what are the major guiding principles in India? Can you think of those things? So here, according to Constitution and the governmental programs, the policies made by the legislature, so on, the main axis, the core principles around which tribal development is being carried on in India are these two. Protection of tribal identity. They have got unique culture, unique identity, unique way of life. They are entirely, in many cases, they are entirely different from the mainstream people. So tribal identity, their autonomy, as we discussed, they are simple societies using primitive technology. So their autonomy may be eroded from the people who are living around, or the so-called civilized people who are living around. And the culture. How this can happen? Safeguarding their culture, language, land, traditional governance. Traditional way of governing will be there. So all this should be encouraged, protected, preserved, developed. So I repeat, the major principles on which tribal development in India is carried on is based on two important things. In fact, one major thing, that is Constitution. Right? Tribal development in India is based on Constitution and governmental policies. So the first major thing is to protect their identity, autonomy, and culture by safeguarding their culture, language, land, tradition, and governance. Next important point in the tribal development is promoting socio-economic development, not just protecting their autonomy, all these things, and not concerned about the economic development means they will be left away from the development. So through integrating with the mainstream, they are isolated people, integrating with the mainstream economy, but without eroding their identity. Let them follow their culture. Let them follow their tradition. Let us not take away their land. So without taking away all these things, this can be done through education, health, and livelihood. Is the point clear to you? So according to Constitution and according to the policies, government policies made by legislature, executive, all. So they revolve around these two important aspects. It is not about displacement and rehabilitation. Is the point clear to you? So here, you can elaborate if at all if required. It's just a like extra information I am giving, because in the examination hall you cannot write all these things, right? So Constitution provides for protection of tribes, like Article 244, 6th and 5th schedule, special schedule, Article 46. Not only that, government measures like PISA Act, empowering Gram Sabhas in scheduled areas, Forest Rights Acts, which recognizes the traditional rights of the tribes. So here the objective will be like protecting land, culture, custom, language, as we discussed previously. Then next is with respect to social and economic development. Here directive principle states about that. and also grants in aid are provided to tribal areas and tribal welfare. Government measures like tribal subplan, special schemes like Ekalavya model scheme, Vanabandhu Kalyana Yojana, and skill development livelihood. With all these things, there is an improvement in education, health, income, employment. This is the one which should be written. So to conclude, so here the conclusion is development should not only be based on and also cannot be based on displacement and rehabilitation. This approach, see, when there will be displacement? When the tribes are displaced, when there is a dam, when there is a solar plant. So displacement, afterwards you are rehabilitating. So what you are doing, this is a reaction, not proactive. So reactive means you got like fever, you are taking the tablets, that is reaction. Proactive, getting the vaccine so that you won't be getting the disease. So this is a reactive approach and it ignores proactive strategies like planning, community development, concern, participation, so on. So a better model is to ensure minimum displacement and adopt right-based approaches that integrate protection of identity with socio-economic growth. So this is with respect to the things which are provided in the question itself. In addition, you should be adding this. Development should be based on protection of tribal identity, autonomy, culture, and promoting the social economic development. Right? This is the one which you should be writing. So if you have got any doubt, please let me know. Okay, then moving to the next question. The ethos of civil service in India stand for the combination of professionalism and nationalistic conscience. So here you should be having fair idea about what are ethos, civil service. So this is in fact a question directly from ethics. So ethos means the conduct, the behavior. So it simply says the conduct and the behavior of the civil servant in India should have professionalism. A doctor, professionalism means who is having well-versed knowledge, skills necessary. A professional, I am a professional means I have the knowledge, I have the skills, I have got the expertise. I know what is required. Professional, right? So he has to be professional. At the same time, nationalistic conscience, nation as a whole. This is with respect to bringing the things present in the nation and also including even national integrity. Is the point clear? So here you should be like taking one important thing into consideration here. They have specifically made this point. It's a combination of professionalism and also nationalistic conscience. In simple terms, in a vague way, you can take like patriotism also, but it's not the exact one. So then you should be elaborating just in one line as to what will happen. Only you have a professional one. Professional means you will be like a machine. There won't be empathy. There won't be compassion for weaker sections. Right? Professionalism, like you are doing what your profession says. At the same time, if you are carried away by nationality conscience, you are maybe a great patriot, but you don't have the skills required. Then what will happen? The same question has been repeated in ethics paper at least 3 times. So in simple words, if at all, if I can explain, take the other example, doctor. So 2 things, a doctor having only professional knowledge. A doctor is having only professional knowledge, but he is not having empathy. Think like that. So the 2 aspects here. To make the things clear, I am taking the analogy of a doctor. A doctor is having professional knowledge, but he is not having ethics and integrity. What will happen? You are having the professional knowledge required, but you don't have integrity. So you may sell the kidney itself. You may remove the organs. Are you getting me? So this is not just for civil service. For any professions, along with professionalism, there is a need of integrity. So here, what is integrity for a civil servant? Nationalistic conscience. So nationalistic conscience simply means, in one word, following constitutional principles. Not just professionalism. He may be having all the knowledge, but what if he is not secular? What if he is not democratic? What if he is biased towards a gender? What if he is not taking into consideration the poor people's vulnerable sections of the society? So in chapter number 3, in fact, that specifically mentions integrity, impartiality, non-partisanship, empathy, compassion for weaker sections of the society. The same analogy should be taken here. So let us get the professionalism. What is professionalism? This you shouldn't be writing, just for your understanding. So a way of doing a job that showed greater skill and expertise. Professional is a person who is having knowledge, skill, required ideas, required expertise. So nationalistic constants here with respect to the awareness of who we are, identity, our past history, our values. In simple word, we can say what is there in the Constitution. What is there in the Constitution? To be precise, in the preamble. Right? So ethos of civil service. What does this ethos means? Ethos means the values, principles, and the guiding principle that shape the behavior, decision, and actions. So what are ethos? Ethos are the values which determine a civil servant's behavior, actions. So I am a teacher. My actions are based on my ethos. So if I am a civil servant, my behavior, my decisions will be based on values and principles. So this is the meaning. Ethos, values and principles which have to be imbibed in a civil servant, which shape his behavior to serve public and the Constitution. So what is the work of a civil servant? Who is a civil servant? He is an executive. Welfare of the people is the most important thing. How welfare of the people? By providing services. But that should be within the constitutional framework. Which is the highest ethical standard? Which is the highest ethical standard required for a civil servant or an individual? It's always Constitution. Right? So it represents the ethical foundation and professional standards expected from public administration. Okay? Why India needs both together? So here the question was, there is a need of professionalism and also nationalistic zeal. The same analogy which I gave. Doctor should have professional knowledge. At the same time, he should have integrity. I have all the knowledge, but I am not the man of integrity. I'm a doctor. So what do I do? I may take off your kidney. I may give a wrong medicine. So this is the one. So here only professionalism means it may ignore the social justice, downtrodden people. So it is just like a technology using those things. Only nationalistic means you will be emotional. In that emotional, you may do many things. Nowadays, the things are interpreted in a different way. Some political parties, they are claiming that they are the only nationalists, they are the only patriots. So these kind of things also should not be there. So you should be emotional also. At the same time, you should be competent. Think about a doctor. He's having high integrity, high ethics, but he is not having professional knowledge. What will happen? So to balance that, you should be professional. At the same time, you should be having the nationalistic combination, ethical competence, fair, efficient, and nation-first governance should be there. Right? In India, to conclude, what you should be writing is, this is one of the biggest defects. All the countries in the world, many, have developed their civil service, reformed their civil service. They have got civil service law. They have got civil service ethics. They have got civil service values. But in India, unfortunately, we have only civil service code of conduct. Is the point clear to you? In India, we have got only civil service code of conduct. To make the things clear to you, I'll just explain these things. Any profession will have at the top values. Say doctor, medical profession, or chartered accountant. Chartered accountant values. Below that, next will be code of ethics for chartered accountant. Then code of conduct. Similarly, civil service is also a profession. We just have civil service code of conduct. We don't have prescribed code of ethics. Code of ethics India lo ledu. And civil service values in a prescribed way, it is not there. We don't have prescribed civil service values. The question was from one of the students, how can we say code of conduct? We have prescribed code of conduct, but there is nowhere in India which says that these are civil service code of ethics. Code of ethics ledu civil service ke prescribed ga. In an implied way they are there.
It means there is no law which
Yes. Yes. So that is the reason what second IRC has said is there should be a civil service law. So law ante evaru chestaru? Who will frame the laws? By the legislature. Right to Information Act. What is it? Law. Right? So when that is made by the legislature, executive has no other goal just to implement that. So please understand the hierarchy. First, constitution. Within the constitution comes laws. Below that comes rules. Generally, rules are made by executive under delegated legislation. Laws are made by legislature. Next level. Next level, you have got constitution. So here, laws cannot violate constitution. Can laws violate constitution? Similarly, can rules violate law? No. So second IRC says that we don't have a prescribed law in India. In that law, there should be civil service code of ethics and civil service values and code of conduct. They are there, but they are outdated. They are outdated and they have to be like rewritten. That's what second IRC says, and you have to conclude by saying these things. Right? Any doubt? If you have, if you get any doubt, something like that, don't keep in mind, just jot out. Because if that doubt is there in your mind, you won't be concentrating on my next slide or what I say. Yes, India is the example. Say for example, Australia. In Australia, we have got civil service code of ethics prescribed in a law. In Poland, yes, in Poland, civil service code of ethics and civil service values are there in the constitution itself. Okay, we'll discuss these things elaborately in ethics with respect to code of conduct, code of ethics, civil service values, separate chapter. Next. Now just read this. This is a very simple, pretty simple question, but the thing is, you should have thought what exactly this means. Then only you can answer. Achieving sustainable growth. So growth which is sustainable. Not like once it will be very high, once it will be low. And in a vague way, you can take it as sustainable development. Not exactly. It is not saying about sustainable development. Sustainable growth. What is the meaning of sustainable growth? Growth consistently. Yes, but here the term is sustainable. Growth should be sustainable. So sustainable growth with emphasis on environmental protection. The growth which emphasizing on environmental protection. Can you give some examples where we have got like emphasized on environmental protection? Banning of plastic, right? Banning of mining, right? We are giving environment, right? Emphasis on environmental protection could come in conflict with poor people. Simply the same question. it may come in conflict with the social justice.
Building dams, tribal.
Yes, let us take a small example. Environment, we want to protect environment. We will ban the plastic, single-use plastic. So who will be affected much suddenly to begin with? It is the poor people who will be affected, isn't it? Say for example, in our own civil service field, say if you ban plastic, how will you bring your curries? So they say, okay, you have to use good plastic. So good plastic means it costs more. Who will bear the cost? Poor.
Deforestation and cutting of the deforestation, which are harmful for the poor people who live in nearby forest and who depending on the forest products.
Very good, exactly. So here, in fact, this is a question you can answer directly with the knowledge you have with anthropology.
Yes.
Forest. Say, you say that don't graze in the forest. Where should I take my cows? So Wildlife Protection Act says that you shouldn't be killing these things. Say, I was been hunting all these things and I was feeding on those things. Where should I go? So this is the question they have asked. So it simply says that if we focus on environment, it will adversely affect on our poor people. So here, this is a one where you have to comment. It is not elucidate. So what is your opinion? So here you should be taking balanced view. So it doesn't mean that, see, if you are not taking environmental protection, don't think that poor won't be affected. Poor will also be affected. Yes. Yes.
Wood and dairy using for cooking purpose. Government should
Same. So here, what should be like your strategy for this is, there are some cases where emphasis on environment adversely affect the poor. At the same time, say if you're not taking into consideration the environment aspect, climate change will be there. Does climate change affect poor also? Definitely it will affect poor. Right? So you have to say that there should be win-win strategy. There should be environmental protection. At the same time, we should see that it won't affect the poor, disadvantaged sections of the society. That is the one which you should be writing. Very simple, pretty simple, direct question. If you have thought, it can be written easily. So let us study systematically. Systematic, like sustainable growth. It includes economic progress, environmental protection, and social justice, social equality. Right? In India, tension often arises between green policies and poverty alleviation. When we try to protect environment, it is coming in the way of poverty alleviation. Poor are more affected. How we'll see. Why conflict happens? Poor rely on natural resources, as you said. Fuel wood, forest, produce, agriculture. Environmental regulation says forest protection, ban on mining, that can resist the access to resources. See here, environmental, we are giving emphasis, that is affecting them. See here, rich won't be collecting firewood. Rich are not dependent on forest produce. Poor are dependent. So these are the examples where conflict happens. Green policies like solar parks, good for environment. But who are the people who are displaced? Thousands of hectares. Will that solar park be done in Hyderabad, Delhi, Bangalore? Remote areas. Who are there? Our Adivasis, our tribal people, poor people. Not only tribes in rural areas, they may be displaced. And the cost of clean energy and eco-friendly technology may burden the poor. So 5G, 6G, environmental friendly means definitely cost will increase. Who will bear the burden? Poor. Poor. Okay, example. Another important pertinent example. Forest rights. They give rights for tribes. Then we say wildlife protection. You cannot enter the wildlife sanctuary. You cannot enter any wildlife protected areas. So they are in conflict. Ban of mining in Goa, Orissa. Loss of livelihood for locals. By mining, you say that there is environmental degradation. Arey, I was depending upon those things. You are snatching my livelihood. Then ban on single-use plastic, good for environment, but affects small vendors who won't be having alternatives. It will be affecting the poor. Okay. Then why balance is critical? So you shouldn't say that, yes, you are correct. You should be balancing the things. See, ignoring environment leads to climate change. Climate change also hurts the poor. There will be drought. There will be flood. Who will be affected more by drought? Poor, downtrodden, floods. Generally. So here we are saying that no, environmental protection is required. Not for the poor, for all, including the poor. Yes. So here, ignoring environment leads to climate change, global warming, things like that. That affects this. And ignoring the poor may lead to social unrest. Communism. If you are suppressed, you are oppressed for a long, what will happen? Unrest. There will be unrest. So ignoring the poor, say for example, I don't have any means of livelihood. I don't have money. What will I do? I'll kill people. I'll do robbery. There will be social unrest. Can society be sustainable there? Can there be sustainable growth there? So here, ignoring the poor also is not advisable. So it will be social unrest, inequality, defects the developmental goals. So you should be taking the things in such a way that environmental protection also should be there. At the same time, poor also should be taken into consideration. Think of those kind of policies. Can you think? Where poor also not affected, at the same time environment is also taken into consideration. Okay, what is the way forward? Inclusive green growth, renewable energy jobs for rural poor, renewable energy sources, then compensation and rehabilitation for displacement. So in fact, we have to reduce and we have to see that there is no displacement, there is no rehabilitation. Even you can say that bringing anthropologists, sociologists who have got a holistic idea into these things in the very planning itself. Then community-based natural resource management. Natural resources generally managed individually. Let that be community-based. Then policies like Green India Mission, Narega for afforestation, PM Kusum for farmers, solar pumps. So solar pumps, environmental friendly. At the same time, farmers are getting the things. So this is the one which you have to say. And you have to conclude this way. And here, many of you are mistaking the things. It is not conclusion. Conclusion ante meer em inta emi rasaro donni conclude chesedi kaadu. What is the way out? How will you solve this? You are a civil servant, future civil servant. How will you solve these kind of things? That is the one which have to be said. Right? Okay. These are some of the questions. If you have got any doubt, you can ask me. In conclusion, the question was like, for those who are online, in conclusion, can we write our opinion or the thinker opinion? To be precise, the conclusion should be way forward, solving the problem. Not like your opinion or any other opinion. What they have asked in the question, what is your way out? What is your stand? How can we overcome this? That's it. So have a great day. Enjoy your preparation. We will be providing complete model answer for all the questions. You can contact the office or join our Telegram group where all these things are already uploaded. Thank you. Thank you.